Good Performance Podcast. Honors Ricardo, Brandon Jetter, Troy Shallow, joined by Scott Leech. This will be titled the Shut Your Mouth Podcast. Shut your mouth and work harder, which is a great title for this podcast. So, Troy, you can give a brief intro of Coach Scott Leech. He's got quite the resume, and I would say is most certainly the hardest worker in the room right now. That's for sure.
Yes. Coach Leech was my strength coach at Merrimack for all 4 years. No, 3 years, and then the last year was COVID year, which didn't really, it wasn't really.
No, I left.
You left before that, right? And Coach Stern took over. And
Coach B. Flem, and then Coach Stern.
That's right, Flem. And then
Mr. On Farm Friday himself.
He hit us with the best letting everyone know when he was leaving to go to URI. We're all at it was after a morning run, and there was a kid on the team who was trading Forex at the time. Remember when that was a big thing?
Yeah.
Leech hits us with all right, Olin Abner's not the only one who gets to make money around here. I will be leaving at the end of this year. So Coach was a phenomenal strength coach, still is a phenomenal strength coach. But when I had him at Merrimack, I loved it. Everything he did was awesome. And now he is the head strength and conditioning coach, director of strength conditioning at the University of Rhode Island.
The associate athletic director of strength conditioning. I started out as an assistant, got bumped up to the head, and then from the head got bumped up one more time to an associate AD role. So a little more seat at the table, an opportunity to try and make some more change than just being the head guy.
He is I call him the king of contact prep. He's got a bunch of different courses out with training in terms of training and stuff. His Stores and Stops course was phenomenal. And he's hosting the Gridiron Warrior Summit on July 18th at URI. He also hosts the Gridiron Warrior podcast.
Yes. You guys coming to the summit or what?
I'll be down. I can be down there. Yeah.
Come on
Saturday,
down,
July 18th. Let's go.
Saturday, July 18th. Half football, half
Some people don't know. I don't know if he's still doing it, but I remember when he was. Strong Woodworks, his own custom woodworking. I remember when he was doing that. Did some very nice pieces. I don't know if he's still doing that.
My cutting board gets used every day. There's some stuff still floating out there that people got, and that was definitely a COVID hobby when I had the time to do it. 2 kids, full-time job, and then the side gig with the Gridiron Warrior stuff has made it hard to do that. It's in the back pocket if I ever need to,
You can still get it done.
Stuff hits the fan and this ain't going to work out. I can go back to the wood shop and get back to work and get my hands dirty. Start spitting out some cutting boards again. So we'll see.
So what is the Gridiron Warrior Summit?
Yeah.
Can I give it?
The summit so Gridiron Warrior to me is kind of the all-encompassing term for all these courses I put together. It's my philosophy on training. And, Troy can attest to this. And obviously I love the weight room. I love getting big. I love getting strong. I think those things are still valuable and still important. But if you're not pairing those up with the field work, if you're not doing things like contact prep, then you're not going to be ready to transfer that strength you gained in the weight room into what you're doing on the field. You can do all the speed work in the world. You can get the lasers out. You can do all those things. And I've seen it, right? We've had at Merrimack, we had some dual sport kids that were on the track team. You could be track fast, but if you don't apply it to football, it's not going to show up, right? You can be again, there's the classic term, right? That kid is a weight room warrior. He's in there all the time. He's always doing that. I've had plenty of weight room warriors here that have never played football. I don't want weight room warriors. I want gridiron warriors. I want kids that are not only training hard, but it's showing up on the field. It's showing up when it matters, which is on game day. My whole philosophy is centered behind that. And then all of the training that we do and all the things that come part of it are a part of the Gridiron Warrior system. Within that, some things that people have really latched onto and been a big fan of is the idea of contact prep, which we started at Merrimack and Coach B. Flem over in the basketball court because we didn't have an indoor there. There's very limited space and opportunity. And we needed to do some different types of conditioning, especially with the big guys and get physical. And the concept is always, if the first time you've gotten up close and personal with somebody, let's say your season ends in November, early December, and the first time you do that is when you put pads on for spring ball, you've missed a 3-month opportunity to work on leverage, to work on getting, and at the high school level, it's even more important, especially because those kids, they don't roughhouse, they don't play, they don't do the things that we did growing up and just, messing around. They're not doing jujitsu on the weekends, right? So they're not getting the physicality component. So we need to incorporate that into, and at the college level, right? People say, well, just join the wrestling team. I can't do that at the college level. There's
no.
And that's my favorite thing. They're like, well, just have your kids join the wrestling team. Okay, we're
schools,
D1 athletes.
Like, what Merrimack doesn't have a wrestling team. URI, I don't think, has a wrestling team. Like, there a lot of
and I always say too, I wrestled in high school. I was a 215, and I love my time. I love my experience wrestling. It was a freaking grind though. It was an absolute freaking grind. And there's kids that just don't want to do that. Don't want to do the weight cuts. Don't want to, do all the dirty work that comes with that, but still want the benefits of contact prep. So as a strength coach, providing that is going to make your team better if you find a way to incorporate that into your off-season program. Same thing in the summer. If you go from spring ball to camp and you haven't done any contact, you haven't done any physical, no wonder you're going to look rusty when you put the pads back on in August. And if the kids look rusty, it doesn't matter how much strength work you did, how much, your summer workout, they're still going to look bad if you didn't practice any of that stuff. So you got to find a way to without just becoming a football coach and doing football drills 24/7, because we know that that's not the solution either, right? You need a balance of things. So finding ways to fit those in. And then scores and stops is the other big course that people have been a fan of, which instead of just doing your stereotypical 5-10-5s, your cone drills, this and that, how do you find ways to, as an offensive player, get open, create space, create opportunities to score? And then as a defender, how do you close that space? That's the name of the game.
Yeah. I know a lot of your drills kind of you gamify your change of direction and decel work. And I think Troy's actually brought some of them to our field session. They've been
great,
hugely successful.
And people, they see on social media, they see all the drills, and they think that's all we do is just play games the entire time. That's not true. We still work on the fundamentals. We'll do our decel work. We'll do our lateral push to move, and we have whole series of things. We band resisted stuff. We'll do all that for sure. That's not the fun stuff that people want to see on social media, though. So we put the games, we put the stuff in there, and that's what people really latch onto. But that's how we get the highest outputs out of our kids too, right? You can run, and you can tell a kid, hey, you got to go sprint 10 yards right now. But if you have somebody chase that kid for 10 yards, he's going to sprint harder. It's just a fact. Right. So how can we get higher outputs? How can we get more out of our kids at the high school level? The coaches that I help out and I work with, because I've got a number of high schools that I help out with, it helps them with attendance, right? Because when the kids know they're going to be doing some stuff like this, they're going to show up to your program. They're going to show up to your summer stuff because they're like, oh man, we're going to get after it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be juicy. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I love that you do too, that I see you post is the year, not just year over year, but individual too. And guys, the progress of the team. Like I saw you post, I think you got there 2020, 2021. The progress that you post year over year, I think is so cool to look at. And I like that you post it like, hey, this is what our guys are doing. This is how much progress we've made as a team in the weight room year over year, speed, jumps. And then when you post like weekly leaderboards, almost, I believe that's what they are too. I think it shows, it's a credit to you and how good you are in programming and how hard everyone else is working as well. So I think that seeing that is great. And I wish more people did it.
Yeah. So the concept of rank, record, and publish, right? Tony Holler, I don't know if you guys have had him on here yet, but he's an awesome guy, track coach out in Chicago. And his whole thing is if you rank it and you record it and you publish it, it's out there as public record. And for me as a strength coach, my whole thing is this is my stuff will never lie. Coaches can promise you this and coaches can gaslight you and tell you why you're not playing. And, oh, your ability to read this or that it's just not there yet. And this guy's got a little bit more of this and that. That's very wishy-washy. Whereas here I can say, here's your numbers. Here's your progress. Here's your attendance. Here's your consistency. And the numbers don't lie. So if your numbers aren't getting better, it's either a me problem and my programming and what I'm doing, or it's a you problem. And when I showed that the entire team is making improvements from year to year to year, it starts to it's not me.
It's not a you problem.
So we need to take a deeper look and say, okay, what is it? Now I've gotten to the point that, I've been here long enough now and I know what numbers are really good at this level for every position and not just, a 500-pound squat or a 600-pound squat, but for a linebacker who weighs 240, these are good squat and bench numbers. That's going to be different than my 210-pound linebacker, right? Different standards for different body weights. So that's a big thing that we've shifted away from is instead of just the raw overall numbers, how many 405 benchers do we have? It's pound for pound, what are our bench press numbers? Pound for pound, what are our squat numbers? What are good jump and sprint numbers for a offensive lineman versus, a different skill position. So we categorize everything by position. And I can go back and tell our kids, and I have standards for each one. I can say, based on your body fat, your squat, your bench, your jump, your sprint, at this level, this is what's considered elite. How do I know? Because the kids that are elite in every category probably transfer up and out, or those are the kids that get NFL combine or get NFL invites and go to mini camps and things like that. I can show them. I say, hey, here's 3 offensive linemen in the past 4 years that have gone to NFL camps or on an NFL roster. Their numbers were this, this, this. It makes it really simple. And that's what I love about it is I'm not lying. I will never lie to a kid. Here's your numbers. Here's the facts. Now we need to take a deeper look and say, what are your habits? What are the other things that are holding you back from achieving those numbers? And if you are somebody who has elite stats in all of these categories and you still don't play, again, another sign that, okay, we need to look at something different. Maybe it's not the strength and conditioning stuff anymore. It's the football stuff. You got to get better at the football stuff.
Do you ever find it that it tests your patience because you've looked at so many numbers and you kind of have such a, I guess, proven system of how often and the framework of when guys are making progress that when you have an athlete that's struggling and not seeing progress, do you ever find that you have to kind of tone down your temper, or do you feel that that's something that you've had to get better at as you've done this for a longer period of time? Because obviously you look at the numbers, we have attendance things. A kid's like, hey, my squat's not going up. I'm not getting faster. You pull up the computer. Yeah, attendance rate's at 70%. You're at 50%. You've been missing every field session. Like, of course, this is it. To you, it's second nature, but sometimes it's bridging that gap where, once upon a time you were that young athlete that maybe wasn't connecting the dots, or maybe you already were. But I was wondering if that is something you've ran into in your career as coaching, where you kind of get a little too impatient with the athletes because you've seen it so many times.
Having 2 kids now, I don't know if I qualify as an UNC. I think I do. I think I've reached UNC status, and I'm less affected by those things anymore. So
according to kids now, anyone born before 2000 is UNC. So
I'm UNC. There we go. Yeah. That works. I don't get frustrated with those kids because if he does come to me and says, I'm upset with my numbers, I'm not happy with it, then that shows me you care, right? So I'm willing to work with it. If you care and you give a shit, I will pour into you. It's the kids that you've brought it up to them. They've maybe mentioned it once or twice and they're still not making progress. Those are the kids that, try as you might, there are always going to be kids on the roster that are just there to be on the roster, to be a part of the team. I hate that. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish we could just go recruit 105 guys who are dialed in that want to do that. It is very hard to find 105 hungry, motivated individuals to do that. Now, part of that is recruiting. You got to go out and get those kids, but you also need to fill out your roster. And sometimes you're going to miss. Sometimes you're just not going to get those kids. And it's unfortunate, but you got to do the best you can. And then you got to continue to pour into the kids that are invested. You got to take the leaders on the team. So this is the next step, is take the leaders on the team and have them try and bring their teammates up. Because I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but if your teammates give a shit about you, that may be the thing that pulls you along and gets you to the next level. And sometimes kids just need that come to Jesus moment where they're like, you've been here 3 years. What are we doing? Do you want to get like, and some kids are just like, no, I'm good. I'm going to finish this thing, get my degree. And okay, cool. You're on the team. You're going to be a practice guy. You're going to help out. You're going to do your role. You're going to play your part. As long as you know it and you're okay with it and you're meeting my standards and expectations for attendance and you're not causing distractions, then it is what it is. But yeah, it does get frustrating sometimes. You wish everybody was a Troy Shallow, but they all can't be.
That brings another point I wanted to cover. Some insight into Troy Shallow as an athlete at Merrimack, because he's always been a presence in the weight room here with us. But what was he like as an athlete back in college? What is a Troy Shallow athlete for our listeners?
I'll tell you this. Troy, you were part of the Friday afternoon group, right? The second group?
Oh, yeah.
It had to be. So yep. I purposely, Merrimack's smaller weight room, so we had to train football in 3 groups throughout the day, and we purposely organized these groups. There's always strategy involved, right? Obviously, class schedules is a piece of it and things like that. But I knew that Friday was Big Squat Friday. We were just going to crush it on the end of the week, going into the weekend feeling good. and I purposely put all of the dogs. And now maybe this is not the right answer because maybe you need some of those guys in the early groups to build the early groups up and kind of get on those guys. But I put all the dogs in the last group of the day, last thing going on in the weight room because I knew on a big squat Friday, those guys take longer to warm up just by nature of, hey, working up to a 500, 600 pound squat takes a lot longer than the kid who has to work up to a 365. It's just matter of fact. So let's put all those guys in the same group. Let's put them at the end of the day where there's no time limit. There's no, sure, there's NCAA time limits, but it is what it is. It takes longer to warm up. So let's get after it. And that, I'm telling you, man, that Friday afternoon group was awesome. And then we had Coach B. Flem, Mr. Arm Farm Friday himself on social media. We finished that thing with an Arm Farm Friday, but man, that group, it was you, Hagerman,
Rayner,
Mr. DPT himself.
Roberts.
Yep. Ty Roberts, man.
Martino was probably in there.
Martino was probably in there.
When he was big before he lost all his weight.
Dandini's dumpster service might have been in there. I still have my Dandini dumpster sweatshirt somewhere. I wear that thing for house projects because it's just all beat up and dirty now. I love it. But man, that group was awesome. And it's like, yeah, I could train that group all day, every group, every time. It's just hard to get that with a group of 105. Not every group is going to be like that. But man, that group those are some of the best times is getting all those guys together because we were all on the same page. Like, we're going to smash this thing. We're going to go as hard as we can and we're going to hit the wall and we're not going to bounce. We're going to go right through the wall. And, that group training wise was some hard, nasty training during certain times of the year. And they always answered the bell. It was awesome.
You still do the Green Mile if anyone misses a lift?
I have pulled the Green Mile out maybe once or twice here. It's different. It's a different metric. It's a different down and back in this weight room, so it's a little trickier. I don't have 2.5 pound plates.
For those that don't know,
it wasn't 2.5. It was 1.25 pound plates.
It was 1.25. Yeah. So them together make a 2.5.
So there was like super micro, great for our women's teams and things like that. But the plates were green, and you put it on the ground, and you weren't allowed to pick it up. It had to stay flat, and you had to push this plate for 1 mile. That was the punishment if multiple offenses really got under my skin. So the only way to really do it, I hope you guys can do the video. You had to put your finger in the middle and just go like this, or just get on all fours and just crawl for a mile.
Crazy.
I'll tell you, more often than not, that usually corrected behavior. So
I never had to do it.
The 1.25.
But there was a few kids on the team that never learned, and they had to do it like 3 or 4 times. It's like, guys, what is wrong with you?
I would take a 45 pound plate out, and I would do that on the turf field outside on the stadium. And there's something about the 45 pound plate. You're like, I'm going to thug it out. I'm going to be tough, and I'm going to push this thing. And you don't learn your lesson. But when it's just 1.25 pounds, just something small, and just something about that just hurts a little bit more and stings a little bit harder than doing something physical and nasty like a 45 pound plate. So
yeah, there's no badge of honor to push it's a straight up punishment. Because sometimes I feel guys do the plate pushes as punishments, like, oh, that was so hard. Like, you get that kind of, I did that. Whereas you put that little plate. I've never seen that. I've never even heard of that. That sounds awful. I would say I'd have to try it out to see how bad it is, but I don't think I'm going to.
I've only had to do it, I think, once or twice here at Rhode Island, and it has very quickly corrected itself, and it's not something that comes out very often anymore.
When we were at Merrimack, you did a phenomenal job of building up a really good weight room culture. Like we just talked about, like those Friday afternoon lifts were just fucking electric. You did a phenomenal job of building up a really good culture, and then you left and went to URI. Was it hard at first, or was it hard at first to build up a similar culture and get these guys, like brand new guys, you're brand new there, to buy in? Because you were at Merrimack for what, 5 years and built up a really good culture there. How long did it take when you went to URI to build up that same culture?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first got here too, I was an assistant. So I went from being in charge and running the show to now taking the back seat, and whatever the head guy says, I'm gonna ride with it. And that's what being a good assistant's all about is if the boss man says we're doing this, the boss man says we're doing it. And we gotta, I can't be like, "Oh, I don't agree with this, and we should be doing this and that instead." But when I had the opportunity, so he ended up taking a month or two off. He had some medical stuff going on. I took over the program for a couple months and started doing things the way I like to do things, the Gridiron Warrior way. And we started seeing some good results, and kids were feeling better. And again, the environment, the energy, and it comes down to saying like, "Hey, this is how we're going to do it. You know, you got to trust the process, and if you do, again, I'm going to show you the numbers to prove that we're getting better. But at the same time, we're going to come together, and it's going to make something happen here." And then obviously being the head guy has been great because then it just allows me to continue to not only just set out a great program. I think that's half the battle. If you put out a great program that gets people better and not just stronger, right? Because there's plenty of programs out there that'll get a kid strong and they just feel fucking beat up the whole time and they're achy and then they got to go to practice and it's like, they're trying to do a great job at practice, but they're so freaking sore from lifting. It's like that's not a good program. Then there needs to be a balance there, and a good working relationship, and that's always been the case. Is like, the weight room stuff is important. Don't get me wrong, but the most important thing is winning games. So if we're not winning games, I got to change what I'm doing and course correct it. I like to think that I'm a player's coach. I'm a person that if we need to modify, we need to adjust, we need to do things differently. I've had kids that can't back squat, right? Whether it's, back injuries or things like that, or just every time they do it, they flare up. You got to come up with a plan B. Now, your culture and your standards can't change just because you're on the pit shark because you can't back squat doesn't mean it's a free ride over on the pit shark, right? I'm going to put as many plates as I can. I'm probably going to come over there and stand on the pit shark as well. And we're going to get after it. And it's going to be, you're almost going to wish you were squatting instead of pit squatting, So the standard and the culture doesn't change, but how we get the job done has to. And I think because I'm willing to modify, because I'm willing to adjust and figure out whatever it's going to take to win championships, kids are bought into that. And then obviously all the other pieces and I'm always a believer in competition. Competition is going to be a lifeblood of what we do here. And we're not afraid to do the hard things. I think that's another piece to it too. I think there's, in this day and age, you see a lot of like high-low training where it's okay, we're going to do tempo runs on this day and things like that. Now I still do tempo runs. Don't get me wrong. I think there's aerobic benefits and things like that. But if you just say we're only going to do tempo runs and we're only going to do time sprints and we're not going to do the nasty, some of the glycolytic stuff in between, part of the college experience is doing some hard shit together.
Yeah.
Right. You still you come up with some of and I have some workouts at these, and that's part of the thing is like having some PTSD in a good way that in the moment it might be PTSD, but 10 years from now, you're going to think back and you're going to think about those Friday afternoon workouts with the boys and you're going to think it was the greatest time of your life. And that's part of my job too.
I know at Syracuse, Otto had them called the Crucible, but like the Friday morning lifts for the non-travel squad, like my freshman year, do you want to talk about hard shit? We were getting fucking balls to the wall in that. And I know Otto's talked about what they had to do for when he was a freshman too. Those Friday morning non-travel squad lifts were just fucking like chaos.
There was one, it was like a 5 a.m. pouring rain. And I think I was a freshman. I had to ride my scooter down the hill to get there on time. And I hit a grate and did like a full somersault and landed on the asphalt, like soaking wet. Got up, went, and I think we were walking with like 225 or 275, and just like you'd have two guys put it on your shoulder and you just like walk around the field. Be like, what's the point of this? And our coach would flip out at us, be like, that is the point. I don't know if you know.
Friday morning, we call it the gulag here.
The gulag,
right? You're coming down to the gulag, man, right? It's
yeah.
And it's funny because during camp, we kind of mix everybody in together. The freshmen are on their freshman program, and the upperclassmen the whole time are like, "You guys aren't ready for the gulag. You don't know what's coming.
They don't know what's about to happen."
Preseason, it's like you gotta do a little bit more flexibility, a little more mobility. It's just you're beat up during camp, so I'm not going to crush you with the lifting stuff. So they think it's sweet, and then the gulag is going to come once we hit in season, and you're not doing anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm going to make sure that we get it in Friday morning. We still do it at 6 a.m., even though the kids don't have class until 10 or 11. Like, there's no reason not to. And then, it's always who's going to be late the first day, because then that's going to be a great welcome moment for the entire group. Roy was there that one time where we did wall sits until we sent one kid out. I said, all right, you go find this kid where he is. We're all going to do a wall sit until you come back with that kid. It took like 20, 30 minutes to go find that he was sleeping in his dorm or something like that. And so, I mean, we've done that, and they're hard, nasty workouts. But our upperclassmen, part of the culture, we might for our travel guys, they might have a meeting at 9 and then practice at 10 or 10:15, and then we're going to hit the road and go from there. Our guys will come in at 6 a.m. even though they don't need to be in the building till 9, just to see what's going on in the gulag and check on their puppies and make sure the puppies are getting after it, because they've been through it, and they're like, they know how important it is to be in the gulag and get after it and come out the other side. So it's not just a punishment or the hard things, but it is a culture of doing these things now and going through the work as much as you don't want to is going to make you a better person. It's going to make us a better team in the long run. And then it's going to be a culture that it's not a punishment, it's a rite of passage. And we take pride in it.
I think that's something that has been brought up in other episodes too. Even coming from a totally different collegiate sports background, just doing stuff that I feel like Otto described. Yeah, it's not necessarily optimal, right? But it's building that culture. If you guys remember like the episode with TJ where he was a thrower and he's describing like the conditioning that they went through solely to kind of build this culture. I think that's really an important thing, like in the modern era, that kind of gets lost as stuff gets so specified and so focused on what's optimal as opposed to kind of just doing hard shit for the sake of it.
So,
And
Coach,
I know you guys.
that's Brandon. We didn't introduce him. He's our
Yeah, thought I'd
He
pop
doesn't
in.
need an
Jamie.
introduction.
He's our Jamie. He ran track at Washington State and UC Davis. So that's
And
There you
in terms of hard things, I know you guys had a podcast not too long ago about mat drills, and I've gone on. I've actually presented about mat drills because it's something that we still do here. We do it the old school way, 6 stations, 2 to 3 minutes at a station. You rotate through, and I go both ways. I think there's a lot of ways to do it right. I think there's a lot of ways to do it wrong, and I think hard doesn't mean it's wrong. I think sometimes kids these days are like, oh, this is just all hard. It doesn't make us better. It's like, no, the core philosophy and the whole point of mat drills is still valid. I think it's there. It's doing it in a way that's smart and sustainable and allows you to still train for an entire week. If you're doing mat drills so hard that the kids can't lift the next day, or you have to severely modify your training program the next day because of whatever you did for mat drills, then you did something wrong, right? That's too much. But there's a right way to compete. There's a right way to challenge kids like that and do hard things, because it's only a couple weeks of the year. It's in the winter. It's as far away from competition as possible. There is value in it.
Yeah, I think that was our conversation with Justin about it. And I think the point that I brought up to him was, and if you understand what you're doing and you're trying to get the outputs, like you sound like, from everything I've heard of you talking here, and I've read some of your stuff, you're very numbers driven, but you don't get tied too much to the outputs. When you have an understanding of trying to get those results, then you can appreciate the brutal, unreasonably difficult aspects of mat drills. I think that what I have always bring up with doing unreasonably hard shit is it works. It's really bad if you don't have that other piece. If coaches lean all into the military style mat drills, and like you said, are modifying or taking away from the training aspect, or well, it also made me think of when you're talking about contact prep. When you go into, we're going to contact prep, we're going to smash against each other's shoulders for 3 months out of the year. If it's not done with a lot of intent behind it, and you're trying to take care of your athletes and get better outputs, then I think that that's kind of that's the dark side of when you try to do difficult things, or you try to incorporate things like content prep in I would say, old school way. When you go too far into the old gridiron, that's when guys get hurt. That's when guys get burnt out. But
And
Yeah.
I tell any football coach, if they're going to do mat drills, the number one thing they need to do is provide clarity to the kids. If you're going to do an L drill and you want them to step up to the line and put their hand down behind the line, and one, you need to hold that standard every time. So if a kid doesn't do that, no matter if they're the best player or the worst player, that should be a minus on their score sheet. You can't play favorites. You can't do that. If you're going to decide that you're going to grade them on the finish, how they finish the drill, you need to clearly explain, what does the finish look like? For us, it might be forward lean, forward posture. You're trying to push through the finish line, emphasis of that motion. But if you don't explain that what a good finish is to a drill, then you can't be mad at a kid when they don't finish the way you wanted them to, you know? And that's the thing I hate is, again, you have to take the gray out of it. And you have to, if you're going to do mat drills, it has to be black and white. This is a plus, this is a 0, this is a minus. And if you do this wrong or this wrong or this wrong, you're going to get a minus. If you do this, this, and this, you will get a plus on this station. Now, if you have drills that are just like, we're just going to push a sled for 3 minutes. That's the mat drill station. How do you grade that? How do you grade someone's effort on that thing? It's like, that's a very gray, mushy area where, again, the kids get frustrated because they want to do a good job. No kid wants to go in there and just go, I just want to just get to the end of the day and just get past this. Like, no, kids do want to compete and they want to get after it. They just need to be clearly told, what is it going to take to get a good grade? What is it going to take? If you're going to give me a score at the end of the day and I want to get better next week, you need to be able to clearly tell me what I need to do next time to then get a better grade. Well, you put the wrong hand down on this drill, and that's why I gave you a minus. Okay, now I know what I need to do to fix it. Again, that's the thing is, if you want change, it needs to be black and white, and you need to be able to tell kids clearly what they need to get better at.
I think that's one thing that Troy and I have found ourselves working a lot on with setting expectations for athletes that we train, because sometimes it's implied, yeah, of course you're supposed to show up and work hard, but you could get a guy walking in the door that has a completely different perception of what it means to work hard. And it's like, I think that's where those, the gulag or the crucible workouts, those come in to kind of show that next threshold of, this is the unreasonably challenging level of training that exists. We're not going to be doing that all the time, but you need to have the capacity to be able to push yourself so hard that tears might be running down the side of your face at the end of a failure set, right? And like, you have to have that ability to go to that place in order to show that, okay, we can trust you to put in effort when effort is required at a reasonable kind of output. And I think that's big. I think for Troy and I a lot, we have to kind of wind ourselves back and have those conversations with our athletes, because sometimes we just think that somebody's going to come into our group and just pick it up right away. Yeah, that's when guys need some extra
so now
support,
in the era of transfer portal and kids can get up and leave and go to new places whenever they want. We do bring in a lot of kids. It's just part of the nature of FCS is, your best kids may or may not, if you can keep them, great. But if they want to go for a bigger, better opportunity, if they're ready for it, great. And you're also going to get kids that come down because they haven't played. Now they want a chance to shine. And then you're also going to get kids that are at D2, or maybe even we've had D3 kids come up because they dominated at that level and they want to now, they have one last year, they want to prove themselves. You got to bring everyone in. You got to get them all on the same page. Now, I try to make it a point that our team needs to do that. Our team needs to lay out the expectations and the standards, and they decide what's important. So if you tell me as a team, you want to be 5 minutes early to start everything, you guys need to enforce that. I will also enforce it if needed, but I should be the last resort. I shouldn't be the person that holds the culture and holds the standard, because I'm not the one out there on Saturday night. I'm on the sideline. I'm holding everybody back. You're out there making sure that we're doing everything the right way. So I try to push everything to our players first. If they can't handle it, which is embarrassing for them that they can't handle it, I will then step in and handle it. And they know that. They know if it ever comes to that point, I will, if they have a kid that is a repeat offender and they're like, Coach, we've done everything we can to get this kid to show up on time and he's still showing up wearing the wrong stuff, or he just can't figure it out, then yeah, I will step in and uphold it, because it is also my culture and my standard as well. But the more that the kids can handle that, that's how you go to another level, because I can't be out there to save you on Saturday night. The other piece too with all of this is, clear expectations, clear standards of what is going to be a great job, what is going to be, in our championship culture. We outline all those things, we lay all those out. I think one thing that kids are missing these days, we kind of hinted at it, is the ability to go to another level or go to another gear or dig in a little bit deeper. And I'm guilty of this, of laying out the plan for the day and saying, this is what we're going to do. Let's go achieve it. Let's go smash it. And we're done. And when kids know exactly what's coming down the pipe, they can answer the bell. There are a lot of times, especially in the summer, where I won't tell them what's coming next. I won't tell them when this is going to end. I'm not going to tell you how many sprints we're going to do today. I'm not going to tell you whatever the conditioning is. Now, the kids at Rhody, I mean, this is like the stuff of legends at this point. It was called the Two Brothers workout. And it was conditioning where it was, 10 yards and back, and then 20 yards and back, 30 yards back, 40 yards back, 50 yards back, 60 yards back, 70 yards back, 80 yards back, 90 yards, 100, with rest in between, right? So it was sprint, rest. And it was nasty, right? So we get done and, we bring it up, we're getting a break, and then plot twist. we're going to work back down from 100 back down to 10. And just the look on everyone's faces, because they thought the first half was hard. And I thought I was going to get jumped in the parking lot going home that day. There were some people were like, I'm not talking to you for the rest of the week. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I deserve that. Having those moments of opportunities allows you to say, you know what, I do have more in me. I can do more when the opportunity says you have to go out and do more. And I think that's the biggest thing at this level is if you want to win, you have to do more than everyone else. And it's not just lifting, it's not just, football stuff, but you have to be willing to come in and watch extra film. You have to be willing to wake up 30 minutes early and make some breakfast and eat breakfast as much as you don't want to wake up and do it. Again, you have to do things you don't want to do. The more you're willing to do those things and the more you actually do those things, that's how you climb and go to another level and really elevate yourself, is doing the things you don't want to do, but you need to do them. And we need to provide opportunities to expose them to those and hopefully get them to understand that they are capable of more.
I'm curious to know how, guys will probably be back on campus, for you, June 1st? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm curious to know, because we just had our first field session with all the guys for the summer, how you start and progress them through things. Because you got to assume guys come back on campus and they probably haven't been doing a ton while they're at home for the most part. Like there's not a lot of, places to go train maybe, or maybe they just felt like taking a break and not doing anything. So they get back to campus, and how do you progress them in their sprinting and their conditioning and so forth so that you don't go back and get a bunch of soft tissue stuff day one back on the field and shit?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is just tempering my expectations, right? And I think football coaches are very guilty of this. They haven't seen their kids in a while. They're excited. They're passionate. They've had all summer to learn new drills, or they just miss coaching and they coach the crap out of them, right? And they coach them for too long and too hard. And that's why during August, you're always going to see the most injuries you're going to have is in the first 7 days because people just come out the gates too hot. So we're just going to go back to what we do. We're going to lay the foundation. We're going to start with our speed work and do our resisted sprints. The volume is going to be, you're going to leave the field thinking that's it. That's all we're doing today. Yeah. You know what? It actually is. We're not going to test their squat or their bench. We're not going to hit a Jim Wendler 5-3-1 rep out the first week back. It's probably just going to be a 5x5. It's going to be a solid day, and you're going to be like, that's it. Yeah. For week one. And then we'll build off that and we'll go from there. I may throw one conditioning thing. So in the summer, our Fridays is field work only. I might throw a spicy conditioning something on Friday at the end of the week. You've had 4 days to kind of get your feet back under you a little bit, and you got the weekend coming up to rest, but that's always the thing. And I'm always looking at my assistants later. I'm like, am I being too soft? Are we not doing enough? Again, the culture, the standards, competition, it's all, the intensity is there, but the volume is not enough to really do any damage early on in the first at least first 2 weeks of the summer. The hard part too, and we won't have this problem this year because we'll have everybody back June 1st, but we've had the problem in the past of summer one, you'll have 40 kids, and then summer two, everybody, including your freshmen, start showing up. So you almost have to restart again for the kids who weren't there for summer one. And for the kids that were there summer one, they're like, Coach, I feel great. This is stupid. Why are we taking a step back just because they were home? And I'm like, I don't want to take a step back either, but we need to take a step back right now and quote unquote a planned deload for those summer one kids, and you just time it up with them accordingly, But I will warn our kids too. I'll put something in there. So I stole this from the New England Patriots. You guys may or may not have read this or heard about this somewhere. It's called the Patriot Test, which is just 3 minutes of continuous running, and it's I'm trying to think. It might be for linemen, it might be 500 yards. Or 50? No, 500 yards. For mids, it's 600 yards. And then for skill guys, it's 800 yards, which is again, think about 3 minutes. If you're going around a track, that's 2 laps around a track in 8 minutes. That's a piece of cake should be a piece of cake for a skill guy. Now, granted, they're alactic, so you put them in this glycolytic zone and they're like, this sucks. This is nasty. So we'll do a couple of those. And it's yeah, that's a good wake up call right there because it's a tough challenge. You're 3 minutes, you're in your head the entire time. But at the end of the day, is that really intensity wise something that's going to crush them and cause soft tissue injuries? No. So it's it's for us, it's a good balance of give them something hard, give them something that is going to make them suck wind, no matter whether they trained for the month of May or not. But at the same time, it's okay, that was a good intro So now next week when we do conditioning on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we can do a little bit more on Tuesday, Thursday before we crush them on Friday.
Like today, all we did was a really long warm up and then some bounding after, and everyone's dying after the warm up, and we're like, yeah, this is why this is all we're doing. Like, you guys
we
haven't
also
done
call
anything.
it a warm up, and they end up doing like quite a few sprints during the
Plyos are always a
phase.
tricky balance. So I'm always trying to go back and forth on plyos because plyos are the thing that are going to beat people up. Do too much of that too soon. Now, granted, the opposite side of it is you do just extensive plyos, right? You do a ton of ankle jumps and things like that, and those are incredibly boring, right? So then you're like, oh, I don't want to do this the whole time. This is freaking boring. You want to get into the fun bounding and long jumps and all that, but you have to kind of taper that and slowly introduce those things because those are the things, especially your linemen. Those are the things that are going to beat them up the most. One thing we'll do a little differently this year, we'll do a lot more deep tier plyometrics, right? So that's the new thing from McInnes and all the jump stuff there is introducing some of those deeper positions and adding more variety to our extensive plyos and just building a bigger base of those before we really hammer the intensive stuff for the second half of the summer.
Now, have you done any work with those deep tier plyos? How do you progress them? Do you do it from a volume standpoint or whatever your thoughts are for it this year? Because I've played around with either increasing the volume of that or adding load to it also from that standpoint, which this is stuff that I'll test anecdotally on myself before we apply it to any of our guys. But I have seen a lot of uh positive results from those, and I'd be curious to see what your thought process is going forward, with introducing those deep tier plyos.
Yeah, I think between deep tier plyos and then long duration isometrics, I think that the key with those is just increasing the total volume over time and increasing the total time under tension. I'm not necessarily going to increase the load. I don't think that's like the necessary adaptation. I think you just increase the volume on those. Once you feel like you've hit a good point and you're like, okay, we've got a good base underneath us, then you just start shifting. You cut some of the extensive volume out and you put a little bit more intensive volume in. And then at some point you're like a DJ, man, working the dials. You keep turning you're always going to have a little bit of extensive plyos in, so they're always going to be as part of our movement prep and things like that. It'll be in there, but we'll cut, if we're doing it part of our movement prep and then we're going to do it as part of our maybe a primer for speed work or something like that, we'll take it out of the primer for speed work at that point because we're going to put in maybe some long jumps or triple jumps prior to sprinting, so we're just always tweaking those dials as we go. Same thing with long duration isometrics. We'll do those for, a couple sets of 30 seconds. We'll progress them up to maybe 45 seconds to a minute. Post spring ball, we'll put some weight on those just for fun, like split squat hold with dumbbells. Try to work up to a minute with half your body weight. If you can do that, you're pretty freaking strong. But like after that, you probably have a good foundation. You can move on to bigger and better things. And you might just need some 30-second ISOs or, you know, if you're doing extra work, then you can do your long duration ISOs as part of your extra work instead of just smashing biceps and triceps.
Instead of smashing bicep and tricep? Coach.
I mean, that's a non-negotiable. I know you're going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Troy and I ran into that wave you were talking about when we were doing the Merrimack summer, where we had like 30 guys there for
Chaos.
session 1 and then 65 guys. Mind you, this is the first time we've been running like college full S&C for the summer, and it's just us. So this huge wave of guys comes in, we break them up into different groups, and we have some of these freshman linemen who now they're much better now, but they got under the bar, and we take a look at them and we have like mini heart attacks. They go onto the field and everybody is drenched in sweat from the warm up that we've been doing the entire first session. And I remember us meeting, just scrambling to try to readjust everything for the new wave of guys to come and be like, they can't do it. Like, they're not in shape at all. Like, what are we going to do? Because these other guys are prepped and ready to go for the second half of the summer. But that's definitely challenging. That was definitely a challenging little
And we've always made it
week
a
that we
point.
had there.
We've always made it a point of separating our freshmen out, regardless of how much they've trained. If they've trained with you guys all summer, cool, that's awesome. I don't care. I'm still going to come back and we're going to tempo everything. My assistant Noah Meyer does a phenomenal job. He's got a little military vibe to him. And again, this is like you got to go through rites of passage. He's got a push up progression where it's down, up, left, right. If you go the wrong way, we start back at 0 and they're doing all these things before they ever get allowed to bench press. And they may not touch an actual free bench press. It'll be pause bench. It'll be ISO bench during camp. And the first time they actually get to do some regular bench might be like first week in season. So that's, from summer 2 all the way to then. It's like at least 8 weeks where I've babied them. And if anything, that's okay because the weight room stuff isn't gonna like move the needle for them. The field work stuff is gonna make an immediate difference because they haven't been doing those things. I just know they haven't been doing the field work to the same level that we do field work here. And they're gonna get beat up enough from the bounding, the jumping, the sprinting, the competing, the conditioning, that's gonna overwhelm them. So I don't also need to then try and throw them in the squat rack and see what they got. I have plenty of time to work on that with those young guys. We have a 150-pound dumbbell here, so every freshman has to squat the 150-pound dumbbell for a set of 10 before we're ever going to let them front squat. There's kids that walk in on day 1 and then they can knock out a set of 20, and it's like, cool, that's awesome. When the whole group is ready to move on, you can move on in front squat. You just got to keep doing the 150 every day for 8 weeks, and then that kid is going to be pissed off. And you know what? Good, because then you're going to be hungry when it comes time to actually moving some weight. We'll do the 200 rule. I don't know if you guys use the 200 rule.
I remember the 200 rule.
Were you a victim of the 200 rule at all?
No, never. Not me, but I remember it.
Otto, you know what the 200 rule is? So
no.
At some point, right, I'm going to cut you loose on bench press. I'm going to finally let you, and I stole this from Connor Hughes at Army when he was at Albany and I interned there. And I'm going to finally go let you pick your own weights. It'll be a 5x5. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be a 5x5. You pick your weights. Because I remember when I was at Springfield College as a freshman and first day out, everyone tried to max it out, right? You get the kid from New Jersey who puts on 315 and he gets pinned. And it's like, I'm not going to allow that. So we're going to control, we're going to do push-ups, we're going to do pause bench, we're going to do tempos for a while. But I'm finally at some point going to let you loose. I'm going to let you pick your weights today, 5x5 bench. But if you fail at any point, and that could be as simple as your spotter grabs it because you got a shitty spotter. Not my fault that you have a bad spotter and you didn't talk to that person ahead of time and say, don't touch my bar, right? That's part of it is working together, being a team on your rack. You have 200 push-ups. So you're going to get a kid who has been doing push-ups and pause bench and tempo bench for so long. He's like, I finally want to prove that I'm a big dog in here and I'm going to go right to 275 for 5 sets of 5 and I'm going to hit 3 and gets pinned. And then we blow the whistle and upperclassmen love it because we'll blow the whistle and everyone screams out, get to pushing. And we send them over to the corner and they got to go do 200 push-ups. And then they can come back and finish the workout. If you failed on set 3, you still owe me 2 sets. Now the kid who's smart goes, I just did 200 push-ups. I should probably drop my weight down so I can finish this workout. The idiot is the kid that comes back and tries to do the same weight twice. Because then that kid
does it reset? Does the rule reset? So if he comes back and tries to do the same weight and pins, they have to go back.
You fail again, you got 200 more. You got 200.
I think the beauty of it is too, is that it's like, all right, well, you're still going to get benefit out of doing 200 push-ups. Like it's a punishment, but not really. It's like you're still getting good work in. You're doing 200.
It's a little quiet time to yourself to just think about what's going on and be like, am I making the right choices here? And some kids don't talk to themselves during that time and they come back and they make the same mistake twice. We've had kids make the same mistake 3 times. If it gets to a certain point and I'm sick of looking at that kid doing push-ups, I'll make the whole rack do 200 push-ups if he fails. Because now peer pressure will not let that group fail. They will refuse. And I've seen it happen time and time again. They will refuse to put weights on the bar for that kid that they know that kid can't do. And that part annoys me a little bit sometimes because I'm like, you guys know he can't do 275 for 5. Why are you even letting him try? Well, if he fails, it's his fault. He's got 200 push-ups. Okay, so you know what?
Now all of you fuckers are
now it's a group. Now it's a group learning opportunity. We don't get better unless everybody gets better, and then it course corrects itself real quick. 200 rule is a classic. We still love that one. That's still in there. It's again part of our culture, and it's something that gets passed down, and people eat it up. And it's a story that again they'll graduate and they'll come back and they'll talk about it, and it's a fun story.
I like the 200 rule. We should do the 200 rule. I like that.
200 rule is great. We can implement it.
And I will always say too, like there are certain times of the year where, I'll put percentages on the sheet. I'll put their numbers. I'll print it out so they know exactly what they're supposed to hit that day. And I'll always say, if you want to go over, that's fine. Right. But you got to hit those weights. You can't go over and then just start failing left and right. Cause that's not what I wrote on the plan today. I didn't write, 3 by 1. I wrote 3 by 5. So
So I remember the 200 rule, but for some reason I remember it as the 500 rule. So was it ever the 500 rule, or did someone just have to do 500 at Merrimack?
PTSD right there.
I think it was 500 for you.
I remember the 200 rule, but I remember it as the 500 rules.
You and George Elias said the 500 rule.
So
shout out my guy, wherever he is.
You probably went and said, wait, coach, 500? And Scott probably looked at you and said,
he's still doing push-ups right now.
You know what, Troy? Yeah, 500. Go ahead.
You know, for you and Derek Harris, yeah, 500.
Yes. Great throwback.
So I believe URI football was 6th or 7th, no pun intended, in FCS this year, correct? At one point?
We were
every
as
year.
High. We were probably as high as one of those at some point. I think we're like preseason ranked top 10 right now. So
how is, because I understand and I've worked at a few other schools, you know, at the FCS level, and I've heard stories from other coaches and stuff. How is your relationship with the head football coach? Because I've heard stories of other places being like where if it's not aligned properly, it's going to be a tough go for everyone involved with the strength program and the football program, if you know what I mean. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Coach Flem here, he's an old school guy. He's been here over 10 years now. And, you know, being a Rhode Island guy, right? I played Rhode Island high school football. I grew up here. I grew up hearing about how Rhode Island football they're going to cut the program. They're going to get rid of it because it's so bad. It stinks. We haven't won since 1984, 1985, right? I've heard that time and time again. And, you know, he came in and it took 10 years to turn that program around. Well, credit to him that he stuck in there and continued to lay this foundation. Our motto is always 3 more feet, right? You can always, there's the classic meme, right? Of the guy who is digging for gold or digging for diamonds and he turns around early. And if he just dug 3 more feet, eventually he's going to hit the payday, right? So that's our motto here. And we finally broke through the wall a couple years ago and won our first championship since 1985, right? Almost 40 years at that point. But it took so long to get there, you know? So credit to him for that. And he's always, as long as we're getting things done that we need to get done, he's always let me just do what I need to do. It's never been a case of, you know, I don't really do we don't test hang cleans. We don't test Olympic lifts anymore. We've switched all the trap bar jumps and things like that. We'll still throw some high pulls and clean pulls around and throw some hang snatches over our head because I think they're still good exercises. But like, we're not going to hang our hat on testing numbers for those things and things like that. So we're not going to test those out. And he's never been like, well, we need to do cleans, right? The cleans need to be in a program, right? We got to put the straps on. We got to go super heavy on the cleans. Like, it's not a thing. I told him, like, we're going to get results. We're going to get better and we're not going to do them. And he's been on board on that. I have to deal with some of the old school things, again, like the mat drills and things like that we work through. Some of our practices, we're still old school grinders, a type of practice. This is a hard place to play, right? This is a hard place to be. It is not for the kid that just thinks stuff is sweet and wants to show up and play. Like, those kids don't last here and they don't work out here because we are a hard-nosed. That's the only way we know how to win is we got to dig 3 more feet. And, you know, he's laid that foundation down. He's laid that culture down. And I have a certain way that I like to operate, but I also operate knowing what he wants. And as long as I'm getting the results and I'm getting that out of our guys, then we're on the same page and we're good. So, and he's been supportive too, in terms of if we need to get some new things, we need to get new equipment, or we need to, you know, he'll find me a donor, he'll find somebody who's willing to contribute. Or if I say we got to go out and, you know, I've been banging my head to get GPS for a while now. We finally got GPS units, right? So now we're like, okay, we can take that next step. We can keep doing these things. So he's old school, but in a good way.
Is that the Catapult GPSs that you guys are using?
Yeah. So we have Catapult. We have 24 units. So we put them on our most important guys, and it just gives us a good sense of how much everyone's running, how much is going on. I don't come out there and go to practice and be like, he's done for the day, he's run too much. It's more of a course correct on the back end and say, okay, like this Monday compared to last Monday, what did we do differently? And, you know, I brought it to our position and our coordinators as well. And it's important for us. Like, we played a game, Stony Brook this past year, rain delay. It was a 6 p.m. game, rain delay. Kickoff wasn't until like 9:30 at night, right? And so we didn't finish this game until close to midnight. And we drive from Long Island back to Rhode Island, and you can't just take the water, you can't take the ferry, so you got to go the long way around. We didn't get back to campus till like 5 a.m. the next day on Sunday. And then I'm like, from a GPS standpoint, because of the rain delay, we warmed up, we went back inside, we warmed up again, rain delay again. Like, we played a game and a half.
Yeah.
So what we do this upcoming Monday needs to be less, needs to be different than previous Mondays. Here's what we've, numbers we've hit in the previous Monday. If we're under those numbers, we're on track for the rest of the week. So that's how I use that information there. I'm never going to go out there like in the moment and shut things down and things like that. It's more of a, can we use it as a map? Can we steer ourselves? Can we course correct when needed? And that's the way it should be, because at the
So
end
it's
of the day,
mostly
there's a lot of football that needs to get done in a week, and you don't have enough time on the field to get that stuff done.
use it more as a load management from a macro standpoint rather than using it because I know when I was playing rugby, we used them. We used it one for load management, but also for some performance metrics on like what your top speed is, how fast you're moving. I think the other one that it gives you is like the average pace that you're moving at via whatever time you're taking, like the duration. But you use it more as a load management tool to make sure, hey, these guys are clocking X amount of, miles or
Yeah, because
kilometers,
we
however
don't have
much.
it on everybody either, so I can't just be like, we're going to use this to measure our top speed. I will tell those kids what they hit in practice. I'll tell them what they hit in games, and they compete, and they're like, I want to be the
Yeah.
fastest kid on game day and stuff, and that's great. But we don't have enough for everybody, so I'll still use lasers as our number one metric of let's see fly tens. We'll get mile per hour from that. We'll build off our 20 mile an hour and 21 mile an hour and 22 mile an hour club off of fly tens instead.
And now when you use the lasers, say you're doing 10-yard accelerations, what do you give them a 1 yard, a 1 foot? What's the box that you're giving them to start in? Because we've been talking about that. I know with bobsled, they give you a 1 meter box. There was another combine that Brandon had been to. They started, and that 1 yard box is, I guess, becoming a lot more common. Maybe it's just for lasers, but I was curious on how you do your start and stop, your short distance work.
So if we're going to measure accelerations, we'll use a 1 yard build. And then at 1 yard is the lasers. So it's a 1 yard build, 10 yard fly. If we're doing max V, we'll go 20 yard build, 10 yard fly. And how they start is up to them. Some kids like to get in the combine 3-point stance and drive out of it, and that works for them. Other kids like the 2-point stance. Some kids like the long jump, one step and swing into it and go. What I found is sometimes those kids that are doing all those other things aren't getting a hard enough start from the jump, and they think that they can just slowly build up to their top speed. It's like, dude, you have 20 yards. You got to go from the jump to get up to your real top speed. We played around with like, you know what? I'll let you take like a hop, a skip, and a jump, and then get into your fly 10. And it doesn't. I don't think it helps them really. I think if
Otto
anything,
said that before too to them. He said
they
it's
don't.
not the
They don't
build up is a sprint.
Yeah,
There is no build. There is no buildup. There is no buildup because a 40 yard
and I
is
tell
still
them,
an
if you went to the
acceleration
combine and
test.
ran a 40-yard dash, would you slowly build up over the course of 40 yards? No, you run that thing as hard as you freaking can from the moment you get out of your stance. Why is this any different? So that's what we preach there is if you're going to run fly tens from the freaking jump, you got to go as hard as you can. That's the only way to get up to top speed.
Yeah. And oftentimes, sometimes you won't even. I guess with football players, sometimes they can do it, but even that 20 yards, guys still will be accelerating if you get those wideouts and DBs that have like that higher threshold. But football only measures acceleration for the most part.
I, I've had a handful of kids. I've had, a couple kids run some 9.5s. I've had a kid run a 9.3. Those kids, it's like, yeah, if I pushed it out to a 30-yard build, 10-yard fly, could I see maybe a better number? Yes. But is it worth it to change the standard of what we're doing things here? No. If anything, at that point, it tells me that kid needs to learn how to be a better accelerator to get to his top speed number. So then it's like, okay, you're already fast. Can you get to that top speed faster? So that by the time you do get to the lasers, you're at 22 miles an hour instead of 21 miles an hour, and your average is going to be higher over the 10 yards. I always wonder sometimes with the really big guys, you know, 20 yards, they probably hit their top speed at between 10 and 15 or 12 and 15.
Totally.
So it's like, is that too much of a distance for them? But at the same time, it's like, if you can't run 30 yards as an offensive lineman, I don't care if you're 300 pounds or not, like you are a liability out on the field.
Yeah,
No,
it's not a
I'm not
huge
going to
ask. That's not a huge
Mm.
ask.
And our again, talk about, our standard, and if we're gonna get better, we gotta get better. When I first got here, we didn't have kids that could do that and run 20 miles an hour. I have 300-pound linemen that can run 20 miles an hour now, right? I have a kid playing in, uh, in Canada. He's a D tackle and 300 pounds, and he ran like, whatever, what is it, 102? So he ran a 102 or a 101 at 300 something pounds. It's like, it can be done. It took
Yeah.
him 3 years, 4 years to get to that point. But that kid's a freak athlete now, right? If you get, and then we can look at hit stick scores and look at momentum and things like that. That's a lot of momentum moving if you can get a 300-pound mover, 300-pound lineman moving that fast.
Yeah. A lot of conversations that we have with guys about getting faster and speed, you touched on it, instead of extending the window to being able to hit that top speed is a lot of guys seem to not really understand that the acceleration training, how fast you're getting to top speed is one, a very trainable skill, and two, kind of the skill that every sport talks about when they're talking about running fast. It's not really over X amount of distance. What is the absolute top miles per hour you can reach? It's how fast can you get there? And I think people are always worried about their top speed more so than their acceleration, or at least we see it a
I
lot.
think
It's like, are we going to do max velo work? And it's like, you need to acceleration, acceleration, acceleration. Like that is the
I
driving
think
force for
top
performance.
speed is the sexiest number. People love that number these days. They love seeing that. It's their Madden score, right? What is my speed score on Madden? I think acceleration is the thing that moves the needle the most, right? And if the harder you train it, the more you train it, the better everything is going to get. And then I think the hidden thing that it's even more difficult to measure is deceleration. If you can
I
get a
was
kid
just
to
about
learn
to
how to
ask you.
stop and change directions and things like that. Now there are ways to measure it, right? You can do a 1-yard build, 10-yard fly, and they have to stop within 3 yards after that. So you put a parameter of like you got, or you put a freaking track hurdle, right, at the 15, and they can't hit the track hurdle, right? So now they have to sprint as hard as they can and then slam on the brakes so they don't hit this track hurdle. And then you can measure that compared to their normal 10-yard acceleration. So this is your normal 10-yard acceleration. This is your 10-yard acceleration when you have to decel afterwards, right? Are you decelerating before you even finish the lasers because you're very bad at decelerating? Or can your 10-yard acceleration be the same as your 10-yard with a decel afterwards, as close as possible? The closer those numbers are, that means that kid's a really good decelerator when he gets past the lasers. So there is a way to measure it. But again, the scores and stop stuff and things like that, that's where it's applied. And you'll see that. You'll see a kid maybe early on in his career who can't slam on the brakes, who can't change direction, can't put his foot in the ground and do what he needs to do. And as he gets stronger, as he becomes a better accelerator, and the more he works on his plyos and deceleration skills, then you start seeing him unlock that ability, and it's pretty cool to see.
You had talked about you guys don't really do many cleans and stuff like that. And I remember at Merrimack, we were doing them. I don't know if that was Coach Kern being like, we need to do cleans. But after that, we kind of grew away from them and we don't really do them as much. And I think that's partly because, guys get bigger, faster, stronger without them. And me personally, I've hurt my wrist doing catching clean so many times. Martino, I remember, broke his wrist catching clean so many times, so that kind of turned me off to them as well. But I'm curious to know your reason as to why you guys stay away from them a little bit, also.
Yeah, this is another thing. I presented on this before, and it's out there if you want to find the information. But I mean, it's all the things you talked about. I've had injuries, I've had people get hurt doing cleans. I don't really, other than the occasional kid dropping a trap bar on his foot, I don't have people get hurt doing trap bar stuff. With the day and age of the transfer portal, I don't know what kids have done in the past, and nothing grinds my gears more than having to go back and reteach cleans. We talked about, what do kids look like when they come back from break? They don't clean over break. I'm not going to any gym and doing cleans, but you can go to any gym and maybe like grab some dumbbells and do some dumbbell jumps. So, and if you haven't been doing any of those things, it's easier to just pick up dumbbells or a trap bar and start jumping than it is to go back and teach cleans. So you'd spend 3 or 4 restarts of teaching cleans again just to build back up and do heavy cleans. Now, if we were here maybe year round with minimal breaks, power 5 level, power 4 level, maybe a different story. Maybe I'd be more likely to keep those things in there and keep a rhythm and a routine. The other thing too, in my opinion, this is just my own training, is you can't just do it once a week. There's programs out there that will hang clean on Monday, high pull on Wednesday, power clean or floor clean on Friday. And it's like, you need a lot of practice, right? 4x3 or 4x2 once a week of hang cleans isn't going to necessarily get you better at the practice and the skill of hang clean. And at the end of the day, who cares about the practice and skill of hang cleans? It's more about the output. Are you getting the power output that you're looking for? And so I'll use, like, I'm a big plyo mat guy. I love plyo mat. We'll use those. We'll stand on those. We'll jump on those. I'm at the point now, like, we've done the research on what body weights or what weights you should put on a trap bar. I have that number somewhere. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know, offensive linemen and defensive linemen, it's less weight than you think, right? It might be, if we have a trap bar jump day, they might only have 25 to 30% of their body weight on a trap bar because common sense, right? They're 300 pounds. They got a lot of gravity that they got to already battle. Whereas, wide receiver DB, their sheet might have 60%, 65% of their body weight on there. And then we can do the same. Like there's so many better ways to program with it too, right? You can go, you have to jump this number. You have to jump within 90% of that number. You can do fatigue. You can do, again, you can increase the load until you can't hit this number anymore. There's a lot of different ways to program off of it. It gives us more variety. You can do different stances. You can do stagger stance. You can do, again, dumbbells. You can do barbells. There's a lot of different, and then you can play around with, okay, we're going to jump onto boxes and mix it up, or we're going to do unilateral jumps and things like that. It transfers better. Whereas like hang cleans are hang cleans.
Yeah. And then another point to that too is like, I know a couple programs where even in season, they'll lift 2 or 3 times a week and they'll go clean, snatch, clean on those 3 days. And everybody's got a shoulder issue. And it's like, well, maybe that's because they're in season, they're using their shoulders every day in football season. Now they're catching cleans and hitting snatches. Like, can't help but wonder if that's causing into the shoulder issues and stuff, and maybe going into that. But
the coaches that get mad out there, if your program is getting results and you can show me the numbers and prove it, then great, keep them in your program. That's working for you and your school and your situation, But I can show you, for a matter of fact, from 2021 till now, that not only are we getting better this year, we're getting better every single year, and we're not doing the cleans. So until we don't get better, I'm going to keep doing this. If we're not getting better, maybe I got to go back at that point and then say, okay, do my advanced guys, my guys who have already, really progressed, maybe they get cleans put back in the program. Maybe we reintroduce it with the advanced guys. But until that point, if my numbers are going to continue to climb, then I'm doing something right, and we're going to keep pushing this needle.
Amen. Numbers don't lie.
Right.
Well, Scott, it's been awesome to, 1, finally meet you, and 2, pick your brain a little bit, because you got quite the resume and track record of experience. A lot of good stuff. We've implemented a lot of stuff that you preach into our training at the gym, but
and then you guys are coming down to the Summer Summit, right?
Saturday, July 18th.
Yeah, I guess so. First, I'm hearing about it, but I'm there.
I'm trying to change the way conferences are, because nothing grinds my gears more than you go to a conference, you sit down, they got a guy up on the PowerPoint. It's a presentation about something that you're not going to change your philosophy on, right? Don't come in here and tell me a different way to, don't tell me to run cover 3 or cover 4. Don't tell Coach Genetti to run cover 4, because I know he's going to run man-to-man until we die.
He's going to run man-free all day.
Man-free all day. We're not changing our philosophy. So, that's a waste of his time to sit in that presentation. So we're getting rid of the PowerPoints. We're getting rid of the chairs. We're getting coaches that are going to come in here and coach. And so you're going to watch a coach people up, and you're going to learn how to become a better coach because you're watching somebody do it. So
I saw in your post, Dante Scarnecchia is going to be there.
Dante, he's the keynote speaker. He's coming in, right? New England Patriots offensive line coach for the whole dynasty. All I want to do is watch him coach for an hour. I want to see how he's teaching kids to put hand placement on, how he's teaching leverage, the words he's using, how he's getting his message across, because I'm not an offensive line coach, but he's reaching people and he's making a difference, and whatever he's saying is working. So if I can glean something out of him, that's going to be great. I'm doing one on neck training because I think a lot of people don't know how to do neck training exercises correctly. So I'm going to get hands-on. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to all do it together. You're going to leave here knowing how to do those things really well. We got Jack Dustin from Endicott College, D3. They've been crushing it the past couple of years. He's coming in doing all things warm-up. So weight room warm-ups, practice warm-ups, because nothing grinds my gears more than static into dynamic, and then you just go practice. It's like, come on, man, we can do a better warm-up than that. Jim Carizzi from the Naval Academy, he's going to do some stuff of getting guys, high intensity, getting people moving prior to practice, which I think is a big deal. And then we're bringing in a couple other coaches as well to talk special teams. And we're bringing Andy Ryland in, who is like the tackling guru. Power 4 schools bring him in and they just learn how to tackle from him. He's a rugby guy. He played rugby at Penn State, rugby and football. So he's going to come in and just talk tackling for an hour, and we're going to learn some drills. And, my big thing is, if you're doing the same tackling drills in August that you were doing in November, December, something's wrong, right? You need to be doing an assessment of what are our most common tackles, right? 70% of our tackles are vice tackles. 20% of our tackles are gator rolls. So we should probably be doing more vice tackles and gator rolls later in the season, right? So like learning the drills and learning how to not just do the same thing. If we did the same lift, the same workout from August to November, you would say I'm a terrible coach. But there's plenty of coaches out there that go out and every Tuesday in their 10-minute indie period do the same 10-minute indie period from August to November. And that's terrible.
Every day,
right?
every week.
So it's really for the high school football coaches out there that also have to do the weight room side of things, right? And you have multiple hats you have to wear and you're trying to do it all. So we're going to get a lot of high school coaches in New England that are coming to this. But for the strength coaches, there's going to be 3 good presentations. For the football coaches, there's going to be 3 good presentations. And if you know what, if you're like, I'm a defensive coach, I don't need to watch Dante Scarnecchia. That's when you're catching up with your friends and you're talking to other coaches there at the event. Got some great sponsors coming to this thing as well. It's going to be an awesome day.
So when Sam Coop was coming out, little story about Dante Scarnecchia. He had like a private workout with Dante Scarnecchia, and I went to help out, like basically like hold the bag for Coop so it was like me, Coop, and Dante Scarnecchia for like probably an hour. And you're right, the way this guy coaches is just phenomenal, insane. There's nothing like it. That's why he's one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. So to hear him do that on a bigger setting will be cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome day.
Great. Awesome.
Phenomenal.
Well, thanks for joining.
Hope you get some sleep tonight, Coach.
Never. Don't need it. Don't need it. I got too much living to do.
Awesome.
All right. We'll call it.
Where can people find you? Website, social media handles.
It's SLeech72 or Scott Leech 72. It's one of those 2 things on Twitter and Instagram. I really should just make it the same thing someday. And then the main website is just scottleachtraining.com. You can go on there. You can get the summit information. You can get the courses for Gridiron Warrior. It's all there. You get the Gridiron Warrior podcast. There's a link to that as well if you guys want to listen to my podcast. We'll flip gears someday. We'll get you guys on mine. That'll be a good day. But yeah.
Probably better than ours.
We'll see.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it, Coach.